Hey, this is the national treasure, Nick Aldis, and you're listening to the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast. We are your host. He's the Stallion. I'm the Enforcer. And this week we are joined by what might be my favorite nickname of professional wrestling right now, Space Jesus, Billie Starkz. Thank you so much for taking time out of your crazy life and or schedule to join the show this week.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. Well, listen, real life stuff going on. The pandemic has kind of sucked the life and the fun out of the year 2020. So before we get into anything wrestling, how has your year been, and how has this pandemic affected you inside the ring and out?
Honestly, when it first happened, it was like, oh, this is fun. I get a break. I'll have a moment to rest my body. Oh, school's not crazy right now. And then after a week or two, it was like, oh no, where's wrestling? What's going on?
Yeah.
But I think we've all learned to adapt to our new environment and everything that's going on. Right now, I'm doing online school. It's been a lot easier, honestly, for me doing online school because I still get to do stuff and like my job and everything because I'm working. When I was in school, I didn't have a job, but this summer I got one, and when school started back up, I was worried, oh, I'm gonna have to quit my job. But with it being online, I've got to keep my job and wrestle and do school, which makes my schedule crazy, but it's been nice.
Sure, and you're able to at least move things around and kind of fit everything in. So, see, 2020 isn't all bad. It does have some perks, I think I could say. I guess one of the perks for a lot of wrestling fans is being able to catch up on a lot of professional wrestling. And I've got to tell you, I've become familiar with you over probably the last 2 or 3 weeks, thanks to independentwrestling.tv and Black Label Pro. And they've been putting on some really fun shows for me to catch up on. And I definitely want to talk about them. But you've been wrestling since you were, or training since you were 14 years old. Why pro wrestling at 14? What about pro wrestling were you like, you know what, this is what I want to do at such a young age?
I actually started training when I was 13. And I've made up my mind when I was very young that what I wanted to do with my rest of life, like rest of my life, was wrestle. And like when I was little, when people asked me what I want to be when I grow up, it was always a wrestler, ice cream driver, or a CSI investigator. Like I was completely out there with all of my jobs. But
it's cool to have, like, you need to have awesome aspirations though. I think that's awesome. It's not like, oh, I want to work in an office. It's like, no, I want to do something totally different. That's so cool.
But yeah, that's what like my life was growing up. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And like when I was younger, I did cheerleading and cross country because I was like, oh, this will help me with wrestling. That's what my mindset was. It wasn't like, oh, these sports are cool. It was, I want to help myself with wrestling.
Wow, that's awesome. So at such a young age, and that's true. Those, a lot of people say as far as being a professional wrestler, you have to be an actor, a stuntman, and an athlete. So to prepare yourself, even younger, I think that's really super smart. How were you treated when you first went to wrestling school, 13 years old? Were you welcomed, or was it kind of like, oh, she's only going to be here for a couple of weeks kind of thing?
I was very welcomed. My first trainer was Rudo Lamada, and he literally took his time and broke down everything for me and taught me the basics and was really, really great. And then I got further training from people up in Indy, such as Trip Cassidy and Jonathan Wolf, just helping me develop my character and other stuff like that. And all of them had such welcoming environments and gave me a chance, even though sometimes I was a struggle bus. Like I have no hops, and when we were getting taught up and overs, it was just the worst. I was like, my mom showed me a video of like one of my first days of training, and I was like, oh, I cringed. I was like, why?
Yeah, listen, first days are always tough, but when you have a passion for something and you love something, you'll get past it. Now, how long were you training before you had your first match?
I believe around 6 months. it was actually very soon and early on because my training school had a show, so they let me wrestle. Originally, I was only supposed to be on the pre-show, and then my mom and me sold so many tickets. They were like, everybody's gonna leave after the pre-show, so we're gonna have to put you later in the card. And it just stressed me out more. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, no pressure. That's wow. So I mean, so at that point you're 13, 14 years old selling more tickets than really anybody else on the show. How that's got to be an overwhelming feeling, I would imagine, no?
It was just a lot of my friends and family, and they knew this is what I loved, so they wanted to come and support me. There is even like other wrestlers who came down and they're like, "Oh, we finally get to see her wrestle," because before I started wrestling training, I was a photographer with my dad, who's Mouse Wrestling Adventures. So I would go to shows with him and take promos and meet wrestlers, and I gained a lot of connections and new people. So when I finally started training, a lot of them were really excited to see what I was going to do.
Wow. So you've really been around wrestling pretty much forever. Who were some of the people you were watching when you were really young and that made you want to become a professional wrestler?
When I first started watching wrestling, it was WWE, and then it turned it into NXT. And when I was watching NXT, it was Bayley, Finn Balor, and those people who made me really, really love wrestling. And then I went to my first independent show, and my mom hates this story, but I think it's ridiculous. Where we're sitting on the bleachers, and Necro Butcher comes out and tosses hand halfway across the room, and my mom was like, why does she love this?
When your child's first experience to an independent show is Necro Butcher, you know you're going to go one of two ways. Like, you're either in it all the way or you're like, I'm turning around and leaving right now.
My mom was never like the biggest fan of wrestling, but she's always supported like whatever I wanted to do. But she was like, she's gotten into the more side of like, oh, the character stuff, the costumes, the merch, all of that. So she gets really excited on that stuff. But like the actual wrestling part, she's like,
Yeah, the physicality she's not too interested in. It's like the storylines and the pomp and circumstance, if you will, of the professional wrestling. And I mean, that's the cool thing about wrestling. Like, not everybody's going to be in it for the same thing. Not everybody's going to watch a New Japan match and enjoy it as much as they would if they watch a Monday Night Raw match. So I think that's why the fan base is so incredibly diverse, especially in the year 2020. Now, you said you like the NXT and the W. Did you ever go back and watch any of the older stuff, like any of the, from the 80s or for the 90s, or is it kind of just focusing on the way wrestling is now?
I've watched a little bit. Honestly, whenever I watch wrestling, I usually don't choose it. It's other people choosing it for me. Like, lots of times, my room's upstairs and the living room's downstairs. When I go down to the living room, there's just wrestling on the TV, and I'll sit down and watch it with my family. It's most of the time, it's like, whatever's on.
Sure, whatever's on. That's cool. And listen, in a wrestling household, I think that's super cool. You really can't go wrong. Now, you Black Label Pro, they're from Indiana, which is kind of the Midwest, and they really are one of the top independent promotions, period. They have such an amazing array of talent. How did you get noticed by them?
So I have been around the Black Label Pro community since their first show. I was still a photographer, and I took pictures there. And when I did become a wrestler, I went to every seminar. And before I even made my debut, Mikey knew who I was, and he looked at me and he goes, "I'll use you, but you can't suck." That was his words. He's like, I was like, "Say less. I'll try my best." And then before that, I only missed one show, and it was because I had a field trip, and I was like, this is the one time I'm going to take a break from wrestling because I'm not on the show. I'm going to go have fun on the school field trip because it was to like Kings Island, and I was like, this will be fun.
Deserve a break every once in a while. You wrestled Kylie Ray. Tell me about the girl who smiled too much and the spoken word before that match.
So the girl that smiled too much was a promo idea that J Rose had, and I really, really liked it. And I was like, yes, I'm completely for this. Let's do it. And a lot of times people say they see the similarities between me and Kylie because we just have this love for wrestling, and it really comes through. And in the match, a lot of people said it wasn't like, it was just the emotion you could feel while you were watching it. It wasn't even like what we truly did in the ring. It was just everybody watching it could feel that love for wrestling and the energy that we were putting into that match.
Yeah, and that match was really off the charts. And it's funny, you two kind of mirror each other. Also, somebody else, like a Candice LeRae, you know, that kind of vibe where happy to be here, just really enjoying the atmosphere and enjoying what we're doing at such a young, young age and so young in your career. You've wrestled, I mean, off the top of my head, Marty Bell, Jordan Grace, Kylie Ray, Sue Young. What is it like to be, so young in your career and having people have the confidence in you to wrestle huge names like this? That's got to be a feather in your cap.
I just feel like I'm grateful for every opportunity people have given me, and I really do hope that they love everything I do, and I'm trying my best to give them all I have. Like, I am in the ring almost every day a week. I'm there Monday, Tuesday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and if I'm not shows that weekend, I most likely will be in a ring on Sunday.
Wow, that's just repetition and, like you said, doing what you love. And I mentioned the Kylie Ray and the Jordan Grace. Recently, you were also in the ring with Jake something. What now? Do you prefer wrestling men or wrestling women, or does it not matter to you as long as they're a good worker?
I completely agree with the last thing. Like, as long as they're a wrestler, I'm having a blast in the ring. I wish I had more opportunities to work guys, though. A lot of people are like, don't see how a woman and a guy can wrestle sometimes. But I feel like a lot of times when you see it and you give it a chance, you fall in love with it.
Sure. Well, listen, The Undertaker is dead and he shoots lightning bolts out of his eyes. So if you could believe that, you could believe in a men and a woman in a pro wrestling ring together.
You get it.
Yeah, of course. Have there been any issues with talent refusing to work with you, or have you ran across that where it's anybody just like, no, I don't want to, she's a girl or she's young or anything like that, or is all of your experience has just been on the up and up?
I've had a few people who, like, I had one incident where I wrestled Ruthless Lala. She had no idea about my age. I thought she knew because I've been around her so much and I was on other shows with her. And then we had our match, and after Pondo, the booker of Girlfight, walked up to her, was like, how'd it feel beating up a kid? She goes, what? And I told her my age, and she looked at me and said, you're the same age as my son. I'm like, no, it's fine. And she went up to my mom and apologized and was like, I'm sorry. And I really haven't had any problems with people. A lot of time it's just shock and like, oh, okay. And then I've had times where, like, a lot of people are afraid to use me because they're like, oh, she's very young. What happens if she gets hurt? And I think about it, it's the same as anybody gets hurt. I'm one of the lucky ones where I'm still on my mom's health insurance, so I'm going to be okay.
That is the ultimate making the best out of a bad situation. I think that's fantastic. Now, you have a match coming up, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's October 3rd against Deonna Purrazzo. She's the Impact Women's Champ, the Virtuosa. Is that one of those matches where it's like, okay, this match going into it, a good performance will put me on the map because of her status in the business?
I believe any match can put you on the map. Sorry, I have the worst stutter.
Okay.
But I believe this is a great opportunity to get my name out there even more. And I'm really excited to see what happens October 3rd.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest shows of the year. I think it's going to be an amazing show. Now, Also, you have some of the coolest merch ever at Pro Wrestling Tees, Billie Starkz. The biting T-shirt. I mean, that is. It's so different. I think it's like one comic book T-shirt on there. So I want to make sure everybody checks out ProWrestlingTees.com/BILLIESTARKZ. And where could people follow you, find out what's going on, all your matches, all over social media? Where can we find you?
All my social media is at Billie Starkz, BILLIE Starkz, STARKZ. And I also have a big cartel. If you don't like my shirts that are up on Pro Wrestling Tees, you can also go there.
Fantastic. And before we let you go, is there anybody that like I said, you've wrestled pretty much the who's who so far in the independent scene. Is there any other, women or men that you look out there, you're like, man, I hope I get a chance to wrestle blank someday?
I really, really would love to wrestle Millie McKenzie. I know people are tired of me saying it, but she's one of the people I found through wrestling, and I was like, oh my god, I love her, and I want to be in the ring with her. And I also would love to wrestle Bastard Cassidy, who just started out. He always tells me I'll kill you, and I was like, no, you won't.
He's a big fella, and I want to make sure people check it out too. I mentioned independentwrestling.tv. They are a phenomenal source of all kinds of professional wrestling, Black Label Pro, and Game Changer Wrestling, which I believe you had a match at Game Changer Wrestling last week. Is that true?
Yes, I got to do a pre-show at GCW.
How does somebody go from where you are in the professional wrestling world to Game Changer Wrestling, and what was that like?
It's honestly just putting in the hard work and showing up. I've been showing up since they came back and their first show in Indy, and I've even gone all the way to Atlantic City to be at their shows. So I was given the opportunity to wrestle in their ring, and it's just putting in that work and showing that you want to be there. And I had a blast. I had a great match with Thunder Kitty. Sadly, I lost.
It's okay. There's got to be a winner and there's got to be a loser. Are you a fan of some of the stuff GCW does, like the deathmatch, million light tubes, piranha style wrestling, or do you prefer to keep it a more traditional style?
I honestly love all styles of wrestling. Like I said, I fell in love with Necro Butcher, so I have respect for everybody who does all this crazy stuff. I'm like, oh my god, that's so cool. And my mom looks at me and is like, no, you are not doing that. And I was like, well, you can't stop me.
Yeah, I mean, once you've started with Necro Butcher, I mean, there's nothing that's going to really surprise you at that point. So, well, listen, Billie Starkz, thank you so much. We appreciate your time on the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast, and best of luck to you in a couple weeks against Deonna Purrazzo at TurboGrafx 16 for Black Label Pro. We will be watching.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Best friends.